Hi everybody, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today, and in this session we'll be tackling Microsoft Teams and direct routing with Shams Khan, Solutions Consultant from SCB Global. I know you guys over at SCB Global do a lot with Teams and direct routing, so really keen to kind of delve into the subject of direct routing, how that's kind of panning out at the moment, because it seems to be certainly a big trend in the marketplace right now. So, first of all, Shams, before we get stuck in, how about you give us a bit of an introduction? Tell us about who you are, what you do, and what does SCB Global do?
Yep, thank you. So, as you mentioned, my name is Shams Khan. I work as a solutions consultant with SCB Global. I've been with the business for 7 years. The role I have in the business is to sit between the business and the technical side. So work with customer pain points, take them on a journey to provide them a solution that is best fit for them. And that takes us into what SCB is all about as well. So we started it as under a parentship known as Amer Telecom as a product within them about 2004, providing enterprise business communication. Since then, we have evolved with our telco heritage to cater for the cloud market with our feature-rich solutions with modern technologies around SIP trunking, UCaaS, CCaaS, and providing the service wrap now in Microsoft Teams.
Great stuff. So lots in that portfolio, but today we're going to focus in on Microsoft Teams and what you do in that kind of world or ecosystem. First of all, direct routing is going to play a key part of this conversation. So how about we start with a quick definition of direct routing? To the layman, what is direct routing?
Yep. So direct routing is a term that Microsoft coined around providing, in simple sense, to connect your voice traffic to the PSTN, which is your mobile numbers that you call or landline numbers that you call from Microsoft as a soft phone client or a Microsoft application. And this allows businesses to connect using their own carriers or interconnect with the existing environment, providing some hybrid functionality. So that's what it is in essence, but there's a lot of variables within that when you scratch the surface, and that's where I think a lot of times businesses find it challenging. Yes, you can pretty much go and procure direct routing from Microsoft, which means you have to have a certain set of licenses to enable that. Then you need to have a set of certified hardware that Microsoft certifies with. Then you need to have deployment, provisioning, configuration, routing policies, and then also get a provider who can provide you coverage and regulatory compliance voice communications over SIP trunks, or it may be using a PRI in certain countries. So there is quite a few components when you start looking in direct routing, but in essence, in a simple one line, it would mean connecting your voice traffic to the PSTN world.
Great. So essentially bringing your own telephony service or choice of carrier to Microsoft Teams rather than using their standard calling plans that they offer.
That's right. So you would probably be able to leverage your own provider. You basically are able to bring your own services that you may have that you want to integrate with Microsoft application for Microsoft Teams, and also be able to provide your own interconnects and your hardware appliances that you will require to enable that. There's some security elements as well. There's networking elements as well. There's quite a few components within the direct routing realm of Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's for me, not knowing too much about session border controllers and things like that, that's the scary bit. So how about you tell us what those core components are and what the general or typical challenges are out there right now when looking at direct routing with Teams?
Absolutely. So firstly, there is an option for a CapEx investment where you go to certain certified providers, get the SBC installed, provisioned, and again, session border controller is like a firewall that has to be hooked in. Your voice routing policies have to be deployed. There are alternative options as well where you can go for a cloud edition, which will be virtualized in an AWS environment or Azure, or you can even virtualize it yourself as an enterprise. But what we are seeing from there is that you have to have in-house expertise or contractors who would be able to ensure that the service is up and running on those certified session border controllers. Then you need to have certain SSL certificates to allow the security, the Microsoft proprietary accepts codec translation that needs to happen. And then there comes the other side of the leg, which is taking the call to the PSTN carrier, who are also expecting traffic to traverse to the PSTN in a certain format or in a certain policy. So there are quite a few touch points within that for direct routing to be enabled for an enterprise. Yes, there is a licensing side from Microsoft that you need to have phone system license, which they call it, that allows users to then use a dial pad within the Microsoft Teams client and call using the policy that is set you on the tenant level. That's a Microsoft tenant. Then that tenant will talk to the SBC, which has to be in a proprietary language, if you want to put it that way. Then there is some SSL certificates on top of that. And then on the back end of that, so there's an incoming side and an outgoing side for a single call. As you can see, it starts to get a bit of technical. You have to provide that end-to-end capability without the user having to do much, whereby the carrier understands only numbers, whereas Microsoft understands certain codes within the tenant level. So that's the part the SBC comes in, and the configuration is required on various levels within the session border controller. So that expertise is not something an IT department can just be said, take this and now get on with it. You need to have special expertise and understanding of voice world for you to deliver that traffic.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. The understanding of the voice, isn't it? Because not all IT folk get the voice piece, and it is pretty sensitive. You do have to get it right, or it could be a complete disaster. So good advice there. What else should be considered as part of those kind of typical issues or challenges?
There are around networking components as well. So firewalls, policies, and I think the best way is to understand the enterprise, how it functions, and that is also a factor that many times businesses are trying to come up with, especially with the disparate workforce now, remote workers who are sitting outside of the corporate network, how they're going to talk to Microsoft Cloud and using direct routing component. There's quite a few other variables that start to come in if the session border controller is not accessible to a remote worker, for example, whereby they have to then go to the Microsoft some microservices like media processors and transport relay. Then the traffic comes back down into the SBC. Then it goes to the carrier. That's why direct routing comes in to provide you media bypass and some other components as well that again is at the discretion of the enterprise, whether they would allow that to the remote worker or within their policy. So there has been that factor that has been a bit of a pain point, I would say, around how you could leverage direct routing as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. I was going to say, I believe that there's a lot more to it than just plugging a set of lines in on Microsoft Teams. If you are an enterprise or you're a multi-site organization or you've got remote workers, there is a lot to this, isn't there? And having that experience is absolutely key. So, okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
What else would you say? We've got regulatory challenges. We've got compliance to consider in here as well.
Yes, so we've got regulatory challenges in certain countries whereby you are not allowed to take the traffic outside of that home tenant country, or you have to send the traffic to the local carrier. So you have to put in some gateways and devices that has to be local to that particular site or those users, and then they have to be connected back into the Microsoft Teams environment, which is a Microsoft Cloud PBX. So there are those challenges. Then there is quality of service that comes in, because the SBC in another scenario could be far away, let's say in Amsterdam, and the customer is in US. So there's a long hop that has to be taken, and then it goes to the mobile network or a landline network side where the caller might be sitting in the US and making a call somewhere. So that is another challenge that has to be taken care of and thought about. Compliance risks, naturally, if you are sending traffic through a carrier who don't have the local in-country presence, number presentation could be a problem. We've seen before where customers are trying to call local non-geographic number through a carrier who doesn't have that support because of the prefix that has to be removed if they're using an international route. That's been a problem. Sending traffic to emergency services has been a problem. And sometimes sending traffic which is not acceptable in a number format could also, accrue six-figure fines, which people have not really thought about.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it can be quite. I mean, the key word here is complex, isn't it? Compliance and regulations is complex. You can't get away from that. But if the larger the business, the more important that becomes, I suppose, to have the right partner on side. Okay. Any other typical challenges, or should we move on to kind of what we need to, or the best way to approach this is?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the other challenge would be around having the voice routing policy, so there is resilience in place, and you can provide location-based routing. Even having the know-how and the technical knowledge is a factor that tends to get missed or overlooked sometimes if you don't have that voice expertise and the voice carrier grade, understanding. So that's another thing that needs to be brought to the attention for enterprises.
Great stuff. So let's talk about how to be successful with direct routing. What would you say are the kind of best practices, the best things to get an organization started on this road?
I mean, from our perspective, and this is where SCB comes in, is that we've seen all this plethora of various challenges or know-how and expertise. Yes, organizations can go by doing it themselves, by getting the SBCs, getting the experts, putting it together, and then also finding the carriers, doing the interop, stress testing, going through the whole test plan to ensure. And there are quite a lot of material out there as well from Microsoft. Microsoft got a really nice, in library of knowledge base. Somebody could pretty much try and do all of that themselves, and hiring the resources if they don't have that in-house. But then the challenge comes, who's going to maintain and manage that going forward? Because business requirements continuously change. Sometimes we're living in a global village right now where disparate workforce, remote workforce is continuously increasing. How are we going to address that as a business? So that is where I think we come in at SCB to say, we give you a single pane of glass to manage and maintain your environment. You pretty much do not require an SBC or an expertise in-house. We become the extended arm for that business and provide the end-to-end experience, whether it is from compliance, regulatory requirements, maintaining the calling plans, voice routing policies, adding and removing users, all of that is handled by SBC in a customer-led, solution-centric approach.
Great stuff. And you've wrapped this up into a kind of product or service, haven't you, called Opto for Teams? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Opto for Teams is pretty much to unbundle all the various elements that we discuss in direct routing, but as well as in the voice world. So providing enhanced feature sets that Microsoft PBX currently doesn't offer, or providing a connector per se to any other on-premise PBX with a simple cloud deployment with a footprint that is pretty much global, anywhere in the world, and having that telco grade, voice services that plugs into the environment that sits in Azure. And we have a very unique approach in terms of how we have deployed the environment in a cloud edition model with audio cores, which is the only vendor currently in the SBC world who's got the high availability truly, mapped out in Azure, with multiple signaling path and calling path going for each call. So you have a region to region resilience as well. So like we know there could be outages because of demand in a certain region. The way we have architected is to understand that the uptime is of paramount essence, especially in a scenario like this. We have thought about all those various scenarios, and we put our architecture in Azure wherever Microsoft Cloud PBX is sitting. So there is a less hop as such for the traffic to go out, and it's got the media resiliency as well as signaling resiliency for each call, wherever it comes from. And then it connects back into all our direct interconnects, which is 100 plus around the world right now. And we give the whole UC stack to the user as a simple per user per month licensing model.
Superb. So let's distill that down. if I'm an organization, large or small, and I'm looking at direct routing, I could come to you, I could buy the Opto for Teams solution, and you would provide the product and the service wrap kind of all in one, and kind of just take that headache away from me, would you?
What we do with simplicity as one of the pillars is to provide the enterprise with the per user per month packaged model for the licensing element. But in addition to that, they can also get calling plans, which is like call bundles from SCB in various regions. Currently, our UC stack, and I'll define that as well, because that's what we have done to help customers understand, is currently sitting around 38 countries today, whereby we can do local dial plan. So you can call to local emergency services, local number presentation. We can port numbers in those countries. We can provide emergency accesses, and we can also provide local intercept for regulatory purposes. So that's 38 countries, and that footprint is continuously increasing. And if where we don't have that capability, we still are able to provide a single pane of glass for the enterprises, which spans around some 90 countries today, with our two-way voice, where you can still get inbound, outbound calling. And if you require emergency services, we can put a local gateway that is part of the service again, and globally managed in a single pane of glass by SCB, and you are able to get the local emergency services as well immediately by preserving your existing infrastructure. But the beauty of this is SCB would do that on a pure OpEx model for the end customer or for the enterprise. So that's the simplicity part. Integration is if you have an existing PBX estate, or you've got some other applications you want to integrate, our platform has open APIs we can work with. We can help the customer to go on a journey that we classify as crawl, walk, and run into the cloud, and provide them the hybrid environment until they are ready, as opposed to giving them a rip replace. So that also brings that flexibility into the discussion for the enterprises, because they may have an investment that they have done into a particular platform, but they don't want to really, for various reasons, can move. And we all know when it comes to moving user from one technology to another, it's a very difficult task. So we are able to provide that as well as part of our Opto for Teams offering. When it comes to integration, consolidation, we are able to provide UC services that Microsoft PBX lacks with our own Opto for Teams hook that very soon should be appearing even in Microsoft App Store, that we're working with Microsoft to provide that a simple 3-click integration element. We've also got plans to bring contact center as service within the Microsoft ecosystem, and now you've got a single pane of glass or Microsoft application providing you UC services or contact center as a service, and that's the story that we want to carry with Microsoft.
Great stuff, Shams. So much going on over at SCB Global. You're in the right place. Certainly, aren't you, with Microsoft Teams, because they're just growing exponentially at the moment. So, Shams, it's been great talking to you today. How can people find out more information?
It's very easy. I mean, our homepage of scb-global.com is talking about Microsoft Teams. We've got a lot of collateral. You can probably go and contact us there, or you could just call our main number, which is 0203-435-0033, or drop me an email at skhan@scb-global.com.
Great stuff. Thanks, Shams. And thanks to SCB Global. Thanks to everyone for watching today. And if you've enjoyed today's session, we'd really appreciate a like or a share. So thanks again. We'll see you again soon.